A spring break escape turned into a nightmare. On March 6, 2025, Sudiksha Konanki, a bright 20-year-old University of Pittsburgh student, vanished in the treacherous waters of Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic. According to the only witness, Josh Riibe, he and Sudiksha were kissing in the water when they were struck by a wave and pulled underneath the water. Riibe says he saved Sudiksha, who then walked away from him while he was throwing up. Josh says he never saw her again. The next day, search teams scoured the ocean. Helicopters circled overhead, but there was no trace of Sudiksha. Whispers of doubt emerged. Was this just a tragic accident, or was there more to the story? Riibe cooperated, but is still on the island after a court appearance yesterday. Tonight, all the latest from the Dominican Republic. But first, in the early morning hours of January 29, 2022, Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found lifeless outside of a fellow officer's home in Canton, Massachusetts during a fierce snowstorm. His girlfriend, Karen Reed, was charged with second-degree murder, accused of striking him with her SUV and leaving the scene. The investigation faced intense scrutiny, particularly focusing on Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator. Proctor sent unprofessional and derogatory text messages about Reed to friends and colleagues. Those text messages were revealed in court at Reed's trial, where the jury deadlocked. As Reed's retrial approaches, the controversy surrounding Proctor's conduct has further complicated the case, and now Proctor has been fired. How will this impact the upcoming trial? Can prosecutors win a case after their lead investigator is dismissed of his duties? Tonight, we take a closer look.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you aboard. The birth of the Free Karen Reed movement really came when the Google search, "How's long to die in the cold," became public. That was the key piece of information, a Google search that the defense team and now all of Karen Reed's supporters believe that was done at 2:47 in the morning, based upon an expert's extraction and opinion of the data. And that was the birth. If someone is Googling, Jennifer McCabe is Googling how long to die in the cold at 2:47 a.m., and John O'Keefe is not found for hours later in the cold, dead, that's the defense. Somebody else did it, and the person that was Googling it knows about it. That was the smoking gun to set Karen Reed free, and that really began the Karen Reed movement. And from the beginning, I think most of us thought that was going to be the key to the trial. Now, this resulted in what I call this pink wave of support for Karen Reed, unlike anything I've ever seen, showing up at pretrial motions, dominating social media, and just providing support for someone accused of murdering a police officer. This doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. Hundreds of people showing up at the courthouse. And then you go on social media, it's now people across the country all believe, all members of this movement all believe she is 100% innocent and has been framed. So what happened at the trial? And what was the difference in the trial? So going into the trial, it was all about how long to die in the cold. But then there was this federal investigation of the investigators. The U.S. Attorney, the Department of Justice, the FBI, looking at the local and state police who were investigating the death of John O'Keefe. So this federal investigation, and usually the results and the information remains secret, sealed. No one knows exactly what's going on in the investigation. But in this case, everything was turned over to the prosecution and the defense just before the trial. And when that happened, I believe it really changed the complexion of the trial that was to follow. because now the defense had much more than this Google search, which was going to be disputed by an expert from the prosecution. Now you had a trial that became more about Trooper Proctor because of what was uncovered in that federal investigation. They got into his phone and his text messages, information that the defense would never normally get. And in those text messages, he was saying things about Karen Reid. He was talking about the case with people he wasn't supposed to be talking the case about, and completely tainted him, the prosecution, and the investigation. And after covering that trial and watching that trial, it really, at the end of the day, despite the fact that the entire Free Karen Reid movement was born from the how long to die in the cold Google search, it became much more about Trooper Proctor. It absolutely did. And now we've got another development as the retrial of the century is getting ready to begin. You've got a finding. He was suspended already from his duties, but now a trial board finding. Take a look. Trooper Michael Proctor, as a result of his actions, shall be terminated and dishonorably discharged. And it was all because of what was uncovered in that federal investigation. This is enormous. This is an enormous development now. Now, as this next trial gets set to go, you've got the lead investigator who's no longer a detective, no longer an officer. He's been dishonorably discharged. Now, for those of you who don't remember, let's take a listen to when he was on the stand during the trial and Alan Jackson is cross-examining him and going through the text messages that he was sending and what was in those text messages. It's like, it was jaw-dropping, it was a huge moment, and it's something that you never, ever see. Take a look.
So these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job.
Objection.
So don't spell it. You have to, so these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. Though, no ass. Question is that chick a smoke? Again, 4146 question mark. I respond EH. I respond again, nutbag, as Chief would say. I also respond with, she's got a leaky balloon knot, leaks poo. These came from me. Funny, I'm going through his client's phone. No nude so far. I hate that man. I truly hate him.
You weren't so much as objectively investigating her as objectifying her in those moments, correct?
Again, Mr. Jackson, it was a poor choice of words and a joke.
Did the warrant say anything about looking for nudes of my client?
Objection.
Did it
No, Your
say anything about that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so let me show you the findings of the trial board that dismissed and fired Trooper Proctor. Here's the reasoning behind it. While assigned as the lead investigator in a homicide investigation, he sent derogatory, defamatory, disparaging, and/or otherwise inappropriate text messages about a suspect in that investigation to other individuals. Provided sensitive and/or confidential information about a homicide victim, potential witnesses, and/or potential investigative steps in the investigation to non-law enforcement personnel. Through his unprofessional and inappropriate conduct, created an image that he was biased in his dealings with a homicide suspect and/or brought otherwise himself and the Massachusetts State Police into disrepute. Now, they added on to this something else that happened not during this case, but on July 19th, 2022, did consume alcohol while on duty, not in the performance of duty, and while acting under specific orders. This occurred when Trooper Proctor consumed alcoholic beverages while eating dinner on duty and then proceeded to operate his department-issued cruiser. So that was a little bit of an add-on. But that's not what it was really about. It was really about what happened in the Karen Reid investigation and case. Okay, so what happens now at this retrial? Let's bring in our think tank live in studio tonight. Criminal defense attorney, entertainment attorney, former assistant DA in Atlanta, Daryl Cohen. Also with us, criminal defense attorney and law professor Meg Strickler. And the man behind the glasses, criminal defense attorney Josh Schiffer. Great to see everyone tonight. All right, Daryl, what happens here? Does he, well, first of all, does he testify?
Does anybody remember a show from years ago called Dragnet?
Yes.
Sergeant Joe Friday. Just the facts,
Just the
ma'am.
facts.
Just the facts. If it was just the facts, no problem in Jamaica or here. But it's not just the facts. It's the former trooper's demeanor, the way he acted, the way he spoke, and how he misspoke. That can be the shot that destroys this case.
Does he testify?
I don't think he's going to show up. I mean, I would move out of Massachusetts. I'd be living in Hawaii or wherever he needs to go because he's not going to be working there anymore. We just heard that. He's terminated. So what compulsion would he have to go? Now, I understand that you could say that he's really angry at this woman and forevermore I want to be at court.
This case is the end of his career.
But it's his fault.
Well, right, but in his mind, is it his fault?
Well, good question.
And remember, end of the career, I've been doing this a long time. How many officers have we seen fired and then appeal and then reinstated? Happens all the time. The Trooper Proctor story, I know people want to say it's done. No, it's not. He has additional remedies. Who knows whether they'll work or not? But it's not fixed and final to the way that I think a lot of people want to believe.
So you think he's going to testify?
I believe he will make himself available.
Do prosecutors
and
need
testify.
him?
They absolutely need him. If I'm a prosecutor, I'm going to grab this terrible set of facts to try to rescue my case. I'm going to make him a material witness. I'm going to have him arrested if he doesn't want to appear.
Well, I'm
going to make him show up.
I think he wants to testify.
I don't know, man.
If I was a prosecutor, I would not want to be anywhere within 4,000 miles of him. He's toxic. Everything he says is now subject to, oh, so you didn't like her. What about this? What about that? I would never want him to testify now.
His credibility is shot.
Well, so the importance of his testimony, when you look at it, right, he's the lead investigator, so... but he was a little more hands-on than some lead investigators. Just kind of manage the case. He is in the midst of the evidence relative to the tail light. Like he's connected to the tail light.
He has indefensibly inserted his own personal feelings, most specifically bias, into the investigation. He commented openly to other people in a way that anybody considering that investigations should be independent is going to be offended by. He destroys this case unless the Commonwealth can grab whatever testimony and work he did and rehabilitate it. That probably means Trooper Proctor gets strung up. Like, it's going to be awful when they're done with him if he's in court.
It's going to be art if they're able to call him, have him actually testify, and not have him come off as anything other than incredible, not possible.
I have a statement from Michael Proctor's family. We are truly disappointed with the trial board's decision as it lacks precedent and unfairly exploits and scapegoats one of their own, a trooper with a 12-year unblemished record. Despite the Massachusetts State Police's dubious and relentless efforts to find more inculpatory evidence against Michael Proctor on his phones, computers, and cruiser data, the messages on his personal phone referring to the person who killed a fellow beloved Boston police officer are all that they found. The messages prove one thing, and that Michael is human, not corrupt, not incompetent in his role as a homicide detective, and certainly not unfit to continue to be a Massachusetts State Trooper. Proctor and his detectives led a meticulous and thorough investigation of integrity, and despite today's wrongful termination and great harm and defamation this case has inflicted on him and his family, Proctor still believes justice will be served. He is grateful for the unrelenting support of the union and the men and women of the Massachusetts State Police. His heart is always with the family of Officer John O'Keefe, who continued to endure a prolonged and unimaginable nightmare. Here's my next question. And this is what I'm taking away from this, is why. And I think the why is important in this case. Why does he hate Karen Reid? Why does he say that about Karen Reid? Is it one, because he is protecting fellow officers who actually murdered John O'Keefe to cover up their crime? Or does he hate Karen Reid because he believes that she's a cop killer?
My view, he hates Karen Reid because he believes she is a cop killer. She did this intentionally, and she harmed not only him.
Does that make it more... Do prosecutors go there?
No. No, I think...
Do they have to explain... Does Trooper Proctor on the stand have to explain
why he's a scumbag?
He not testify.
No.
If he is in the jurisdiction, he's a fool.
I think he has to testify because they have to get the tail light evidence.
Show he's a scumbag because he's a scumbag. You don't drink on the job. I don't care about what the family just said. That's not okay. I don't want my police that I pay my tax dollars with be out there drinking.
But when you get to the trial, right? The trial is about who killed John O'Keefe. It's a whodunit.
That's right.
Right? It's either Karen Reid or the people in the house. If he is, and the defense has... Alluded, the Free Karen Reid movement has said that he is motivated not because he believes she's a cop killer. He's motivated because he knows who did it and he wants to protect them. Those are two completely different motivations. Don't you think prosecutors need to explain that?
No.
Have him explain it?
No.
No.
Less is more. The less he says, the more likely it is the state will get a prosecution. After all, it's near Framingham.
So why will jurors believe that he hates Karen Reid? If you don't explain it.
They'll come up with many reasons, and it's obvious that the man is not a good state police officer, period. And he's not credible.
Why does he hate her?
But they don't need a why.
Yes, they do, because the defense theory is that he's going after her to protect the real killer. That this is a cover-up, and he's framing her. The other one is she's actually the killer, and he's angry because she killed a police officer.
If the Commonwealth doesn't get in front of it, and I'm presuming he shows up and testifies,
assuming that.
if he appears and testifies, the Commonwealth must get in front of everything you're talking about. Otherwise, the defense is going to bat him around like...
they'll get in front of it.
The state or the
They've got a defense attorney prosecuting the case.
Yeah, and that's why, because they know that they have to completely recast Trooper Proctor as being a violative, terrible police officer who ruined their case. And please, jury, please don't let this officer's horrific decisions, unprofessional,
but his horrific...
ruin justice for John O'Keefe.
See, that's the song
That's the song and dance that they need to get beyond the defense, because the defense is going to destroy Trooper
but the
Proctor.
defense is going to... It's not just about destroying him. They take it one step further.
But they don't
the
have to
reason
prove
why... The reason why he's doing what he's doing could be because he knows the real killers. Cops protect cops versus cops hate people who kill cops. And those are two different mindsets.
And artfully, the state can destroy those arguments going in, or at least address them, because they know they're coming.
Daryl is suspiciously quiet right now.
I am just listening and just thinking of a former detective by the name of Mark Furman in the O.J. case. Parallels. If I were the prosecutor, I would, if he shows up, and I don't think he will, but if he does, I would put everything out on the line way before the defense has an opportunity to cross-examine. Why did you do that? I was stupid. Why did you say that? I was stupid. I wanted her incarcerated because she murdered one of my brothers.
It's in the state, in the Commonwealth's opening. That's how in front of it. It may be in voir dire that, ladies and gentlemen, would you be able to consider the work product of someone, even though they have subsequently been disciplined, terminated, and shown exactly what kind of person they are? Can you still trust some of the work so that the people can get justice? But it's on the Commonwealth, and they can screw that argument up in 1 second.
All right. They're staying with us the whole hour. They're not leaving. When we come back, we're going to talk about the trial scheduled for April 1st, but will it be delayed? Plus, coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan investigates one of the most compelling trials in court TV history. The Menendez brothers fighting desperately to be resentenced and released on parole. Tonight, the DA who believes they should remain locked up joins us live.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
You feel that?
The NWSL is on ION.
It's game time.
Showing off a little skill now. The new Saturday Night Out is on ION all season long. Find ION wherever you watch.
ION, it's on.
Given the complexion of what we're moving toward trial for, in other words, count 1, count 2, and count 3, we are mounting a defense based on those 3 counts. If the First Circuit, and I've been advised by our appellate counsel to bring this up, and it was something that he feels very strongly about, we all do.
Okay, Mr. Weinberg?
Mr. Weinberg, yes,
okay.
Martin Weinberg. If, in fact, the First Circuit were to agree with our appeal, and were to take some action on count 1 and count 3. For instance, either dismiss it or take some other action and remand down to the trial court for additional action. That would set the trial into upheaval. If once the jury is sworn, jeopardy attaches. And once jeopardy attaches, if there were to be some action taken on count 1 and count 3, for instance, those counts were to be dismissed, we would then be compelled and impelled to move to dismiss the entirety of the trial at that point, because it's a very different defense on count 2 than it is on count 1, 2, and 3. It's a different jury that we would pick. It's a different strategy that we would employ, and jeopardy will have attached, and the entire case would go away. Ergo, we believe the best practice for the court would be to continue the trial for purposes of letting the First Circuit make its determination about count 1 and count 3.
Okay, Alan Jackson, Karen Reed's attorney, talking about what they're doing in federal court, right? So they are appealing the judge's decision, or not appealing, they're bringing a motion in federal court, trying to get counts 1 and 3 adjudicated because they believe that the jury found her not guilty of murder and leaving the scene of an accident. And they want that resolved, the appeal in the federal court, before the trial begins. So they're asking for some extra time. Now, what exactly did that jury do inside the jury room? Well, I had one of the jurors on my show, and I asked him the important question. Did all 12 of you inside that jury room agree that Karen Reed was not guilty of murder? Count 1 in that indictment.
Correct.
Okay, now let's roll up our sleeves a little bit. How did you vote? Was there a raising of the hands? Was there someone writing down what your vote was? Was it a secret ballot? How do you know, and how was the process that all 12 agreed that she was not guilty of murder, count 1?
So we all raised our hands in terms of a vote, and we voted on that first count that we all agreed not guilty. Unfortunately, at that time, we did not fill out any of the paperwork there, nor sign it. So we were under the understanding that each charge could not be treated separately. And so we continued to deliberate, despite the fact that we had agreed on 2 of the counts as not guilty. We all agreed and voted, and we kind of not came back to any of those charges. We never revisited them because we had already voted on them. And then we kept on debating on that second charge. And because we kept on debating on that second charge and deliberating, that kind of got us caught off guard at the end in terms of how to respond to that and whether to ask. There was a couple of us who did clearly indicate that maybe we should ask about treating each charge independently, but the majority overruled, and essentially we were left to believe that it needed to be all or nothing.
I hate what we do to juries. I just hate what we do to juries. But the bottom line is, all indications are that they reached a not guilty on 1 and 3, didn't fill out the paperwork, continued on 2. They were to a lesser included of count 2, as a matter of fact, and could not agree unanimously there. So that's what the appellate issue is all about, whether or not, you know, something should happen to counts 1 and 3. Let's bring back in our live think tank Daryl Cohen, Meg Strickler, and Josh Schiffer, who's like chomping at the bit.
Literally, he just showed how there was a fundamental misunderstanding of the basics of how a jury functions. They are individual charges. They didn't understand, and it's why you made the comment you did about what we do to jurors, because it's not fair. We read at them. We don't give them a copy of the instructions. We make them listen. I'm a 25-year lawyer. I can't pay attention to all that in one setting. Are you kidding me? And then we see how a judge failed to do their job to the expected standard to confirm the jury's rulings, holdings, to use them before they were destroyed and let out into the universe. Because when your jury's done, it's done. You can't go back. You can't fix it. You can't reassemble. It's done.
And what's interesting, I remember in the Johnny Depp case, they reached a verdict, but they didn't fill out the form correctly. So they sent the jury back to fill out the form correctly.
Yep, it happens.
How do we know that this one juror is accurate? How do we know that one person or 2 people didn't say, well, maybe, maybe not? But
none of them have come forward.
Yeah, when your flat Earth theory comes out next, Daryl.
And there's no curiosity to ask those jurors. All you have to do is bring in the 12 people and ask them one simple question. Did you reach, or 3 questions. Did you reach a unanimous verdict on count 1? Did you reach a unanimous verdict on count 2? Did you reach a unanimous verdict on count 3?
Way WTL.
Wait, what?
Way too late to ask that question.
Is
now
it?
that they've been,
Is
sure,
it?
they're dispersed.
In
and gone.
Massachusetts, they've brought people back when there have been allegations of racial discrimination by a jury, and they've undone verdicts.
I think
they've
it's
made
way
an
too
exception
late.
for that, which is more egregious against our constitutional rights. The potential that someone was voting in the jury room based upon a racial bias, or trying someone twice for murder.
That's why the delay will happen.
I think kind of on equal balance here. And Massachusetts makes an exception if there is an indication that the jury may have had some racial bias. Then they have an inquiry to find out. Here, they may have found her not guilty of murder, but there's no curiosity. Why is that?
Maybe it's sexual bias.
Well, it could be, but why? Why is there no curiosity?
I think that there's a lot of fear about what kind of law gets created by pushing collateral attack issues.
But they've done it for another issue. It's not like this is impenetrable. They've already made an exception in a case where there's an allegation that 1 or more jurors are acting based upon a racial bias. And they say, we can't have that. We cannot have that. Bring the jury back. We are going to question them and find out.
I'm hoping.
But where there's an indication by 4 or 5 jurors, affidavits, and this guy who's going around talking to everybody, including me, that someone was found not guilty of murder, we don't care.
I support the ability of the court to call back jurors and have a reasonable inquiry about what happened. And if the court then wants to assume jurisdiction and reactivate, I'm going to leave that up to our legislature.
Do you think the feds will do it?
I hope they do not.
Yeah.
I hope the feds leave it where it needs to be, in the jury room, and let the jury make that decision. And if they were unanimous in 2 counts, they should. If
they
it's
were.
not,
Well,
they say they
I've
were.
heard nothing to the contrary from
No,
this
I'm
juror.
hoping in the filings, which I didn't get to read, but I bet you the filings to the federal court on this issue would be very dispositive of our opinions. I didn't get a chance to read them, but I have a feeling the procedures that were followed during this time will be very, very important of how it happened to the jury to get so confused. That's very important.
But you know, there's something else to think about. Regardless of what the federal court does when she is retried, will the new jurors say, okay, I want to listen to the case and all of the evidence or the lack thereof, or will they say, I don't want them to tell me what to do. I don't like when they're telling me what to do. We're going to listen to what goes on in the courtroom.
And in some ways, this episode shows us that our system works because there was an unexpected, absolutely out-of-this-world result, and there's an appropriate series of remedies available in federal and state court. People are going to be really upset because they didn't win, But guess what? There's been a review of what the judge did and a ruling. There's been discussion about this was wrong, this was right, this is what should have happened. It didn't. So guess what? Karen Reed's rights have been preserved. She gets another bite at the apple. Judge Konanki is going to allow this trial to go forward.
And Judge Konanki followed Massachusetts law to the T. She did not stray from Massachusetts. I just personally believe that Massachusetts law needs to wake up.
Yeah, you and many others.
Frozen tundra, Vinny, frozen tundra.
Gotcha. All right. They're staying. We've got more. We've been covering this story in depth, the disappearance of a 20-year-old college student from Virginia going to the University of Pittsburgh, was down in the Dominican Republic. She was with a young man. She is gone. He was in court yesterday. We'll have an update on his status and what is Sudiksha's family up to.
Lo estamos movilizando a otra sala porque por temas de espacio le acaban de cambiar a la sala del Tribunal Colegiado de este Palacio de Justicia de Higüey. Si me escuchan hablando así es porque, como pueden ver en sus pantallas, estamos aquí, los periodistas también, personas que andan con Joshua apoyando a las abogadas y a las autoridades. Está bastante custodiado. Joshua, ¿cómo te sientes con las autoridades dominicanas? Vamos a ver si podemos entrar.
Chaos at the courthouse yesterday. That's Joshua Riibe going to court in the Dominican Republic. He was the last person to be with Sudiksha, who disappeared. They were together in the water, early morning hours in the dark. The water is rough down in the Dominican Republic. The red flags were out. Sudiksha did not come back. Joshua Riibe did come back later that morning after sunrise. Everyone's wondering where she is, what happened to her. And I've got some questions as well, because you're getting information from the Dominican Republic, different system of justice, different procedures. Let's go to Court TV reporter Cody Thomas, who's been covering all the developments in this. Cody, I was trying to figure out exactly what has happened now with Joshua Riibe, the young man who said he saved Sudiksha's life, and then after he saved her life, she walked away and he never saw her again. What's the latest with him down in the Dominican Republic?
Well, Vinny, much anticipated news that people have been waiting on for the past few days. Joshua Riibe is now on a plane back to the U.S. And of course, this comes after being in court yesterday for that hearing for a freedom request. And he successfully argued that being detained at the hotel where he was staying prior to Sudiksha's disappearance, without being labeled as an official suspect, without being charged with any crime, he successfully argued that that was unlawful. But what's interesting, Vinny, is that even though that freedom request was granted, which pretty much meant that he could walk and roam the island without police watching his every move, with that freedom request being granted, he was not given his passport back. So he literally could not leave the island, even though he could walk around the island without police following him around. So from that point, he had one of two options. He could either continue to try to fight for his passport back in court down there in the Dominican Republic, or he could have requested help from the U.S. Embassy there on the island, which is kind of inadvertently what he did. He went to the U.S. Embassy, and it was not reported that they gave his passport back, but it was reported that they gave him what they called an emergency travel document, which was cleared by the local authorities, which ultimately, Vinny, has led to him being on the way back home here to the U.S. tonight.
Fascinating. So he doesn't get the passport, but is he talking to, like, the State Department as well? Who's involved in all this?
Yeah, of course, the State Department has had a heavy hand in this, Vinny. They have been sort of acting as a liaison between Riibe, his family, his legal team, and the U.S. Embassy, trying everything they can to get this student of the United States back here home. And of course, they've been in contact. They requested all the help and assistance they could from the U.S. Embassy. And Vinnie, of course, we know that the investigation is still ongoing down there. It's approaching the 2-week mark here since Sudiksha was last seen down there before that morning of March 6th. And it has been reported that search efforts have been pulled back because the evidence now points more toward that accidental drowning versus the foul play.
And how about Sudiksha's family? What do we know about where they are and how they're doing?
Well, Vinnie, Konanki's parents are back home in Virginia, and we have these heartbreaking images from the Dominican news outlet CNP for the New York Post. You can see the hurt, the sadness, the heartbreak there. As we know, earlier this week, they requested that Sudiksha be officially declared dead as they try to, readjust and rebuild their life. They said they have 2 other children at home. As you know, this is obviously incredibly tragic. You can see there on the mom's face. You can see there on the father's face. He's kind of been the spokesperson for the both of them. Just the anguish they've been experiencing, especially with no body that has been found. Just a lot of hurt, Vinnie. And of course, as they try to rebuild their lives and try to get back to some sort of sense of normalcy with this tragedy happening.
All right, Cody Thomas, thank you so much. Let's bring back in our think tank live in studio. Daryl Cohen, Meg Strickler, Josh Schiffer. He's coming back to the United States. What's that going to be like for him?
Well, they may keep his passport away. The United States can...
The United States didn't take his passport. It was the Dominican Republic.
No, I know the Dominican, but the United States may agree as part of getting him out to the United States. Look, we'll make sure his travel is limited to the States. I could see that happening.
I'll keep him here rather
Keep him here, allowing him to not flee somewhere else. If indeed there was some foul play here, I'm not saying there is or isn't. It's very unclear. One thing I noticed about this case, though, we don't see a whole lot of video surveillance. That is very questionable. In those resorts, there's cameras everywhere. We see very, very little. So I think there is more to be had here.
Well, there's a little bit of a situation there. They had a power outage for 24 hours. The power fully came back on. And we do have some images of them walking to the beach, but nothing at the beach.
Yeah, and that's really where my questions kind of go along with what Meg's talking about. Tourism is a massive sector of this wonderful. I've been there. It is absolutely gorgeous. The people were incredibly kind. Any story like this really impacts the entire nation. And so they've got the right to and the willingness to downplay it, but at what cost?
Oh, they're not downplaying it at all.
No,
this is the biggest investigation
and they're going to make sure people see that.
Yeah.
But what can they do now? If she drowned, she's somewhere in the ocean, a shark, other fish ate her. If she's not found in the jungle, and by the way, I've been to Punta Cana numerous times. I've never seen a wave grab and hold. They've all been pretty easy.
Calm.
But at that time of morning, whatever happened, we may never and probably never will know.
They did say that there were 4 other fatalities the month before in January. There were some folks that drowned. They were getting some very rough seas. The red flags were up. But, you look at the water, I'll go in. It's not that bad.
And unfortunately, in a lot of these countries, the actual beach area isn't property of a resort. Now, I don't know the specifics here, but there is crime, and there is...
But that's the thing with resorts. When you're at these kinds of resorts, especially in the DR, you're going to have security everywhere.
But until you walk off the beach, and I've been to these resorts where
this is 5 a.m., so
there's still security.
There's no one out. There was no one there. Let me ask you this.
There's still security standing around.
And I think Daryl made a big point here about trying to figure out where does the... I don't know where this investigation can go. Like, it's...
More forensics. I think we can look at the
forensics.
phones.
There's none. There's no. She's gone.
It's the cloud forensics. What's going on with the phones?
They didn't have phones.
I know they didn't have phones, but when did the phones disappear? When did they stop being used?
Her friends had her phone.
Right. When did that happen?
His friends had his phone.
We never heard when that number was. When did that happen?
Before they went to the beach.
What's the specific time?
Doesn't
we don't
matter.
have the
It's done.
timeline. I want.
Je suis fini. It is done.
How about this, though? How about this? I think the only way this changes is if he says something. But in order for him to say something, he would have had to have done something, and that's just not clear. So we'll see how it all turns out. I think we're out of time. Are we out of time? Oh, we have more time. I thought we were out of time.
Well, then good. It's mine. So
who wants the time?
I'm going to say, I believe you're right that this investigation is over, absent him saying something, which he has been thoroughly warned not to ever speak of this again, or some sort of evidence surfacing.
What do you think of his story, though? That he saved her life.
I don't buy it.
I don't
even rent it. I don't lease it, not for one
I don't buy
If
it
he
either.
saved her life, he's going to be arm in arm with her unless she's, I am not going to let you do this. You tried to drown me or anything like that.
I agree.
In my view, his story is full of holes. It's not religious, but it's very holy.
Right, if you're trash, blackout trash like that, you can not remember things. If that's the storyline here, that would make sense, that he doesn't know what he said. But the story he gave does not make sense. It does not. You're a lifeguard?
He is a lifeguard.
Yes,
he's a pool lifeguard.
which is insane.
And he said he saved her life, and then after he saves her life, she walks away looking for her things, which were found on lounge chairs on the beach, and he never saw her again because he started to puke, and then he looked up, she was gone.
Yeah.
And why would he puke? Unless he
was swallowed the water, saving her life.
Yeah, he swallowed the water having consumed a lot of alcohol and maybe
physical
other
exertion. There's
things.
lots of reasons.
I think it's
Let's not look automatically
well, he's
to the
back in
worst.
the United States, and he is not a person of interest anymore.
Yep.
Daryl Cohen, Meg Strickler, Josh Schiffer, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Adjourned. We are officially adjourned. All right. When we come back, I will reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, calls to release Eric and Lyle Menendez after 35 years in prison for the brutal murder of their parents. Should the brothers get a chance for parole? Tonight, the DA who is opposing their release joins us live.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, coming up next, only on Court TV.
Doomsday Cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her fourth husband.
She said, I can murder you now. The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage coming soon, only on Court TV.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. What do we have? Luigi Mangione, snacks and soda to obtain DNA. Defense motion to suppress some evidence. This is coming out of the Pennsylvania case. While illegally seized, arrested, and detained, the allegation is that the defendant was provided food and soda while at the Altoona Police Department station. The purposes for the same was to obtain DNA from the defendant for further investigative purposes. So they're trying to keep the DNA evidence out. You know the significance of that, matching his DNA to the water bottle. But this is just another example. Mangione, every time he's eating junk food, he's running into trouble. Snacks and soda for DNA. He's at McDonald's where he gets arrested. Anyhow, of course, we will stay. He was eating hash browns, I think. We will stay on top of all the developments in that big, big, big case. Right now, I need you to take a look at your television screens. We have a missing child who needs your help. This is Yadea Keltu. Yadea, just 16 years old, missing out of Chicago, Illinois since March 12th. This is what you can do. Take a look at his photo. If you see Yadea, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference. You can call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Chicago Police Department in Illinois. I've got that phone number for you right up on the screen. Please take a look. If you see Yadea, please, let's see if we can get him to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.